All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Chuck Oxford. He's going to be introducing our spotlight speaker for May. Chuck is a business consultant who helps business owners tap into their genius. He's an exceptional connection sponsor and powerful contribution to our team. So take it away, Chuck.
Thank you so much. Well, it's my pleasure to, and I'm excited that Elise Enriquez is our May Spotlight speaker. Elise is a productivity coach who guides people to breakthroughs in life and business by illuminating what's next. Breakthroughs are what lead to success in business and in life. Elise is your guide for discovering and doing what matters so you and your team can take steps and leap forward to your next achievement. She takes her experience in the operational world of corporate America, the entrepreneurial world of real estate, and the transformational world of coaching to help you move forward with what matters most. In Elise's 20-minute talk, she will share it's time for a shift, moving productivity beyond a to-do list. It's time to shake things up a bit, to move away from defining our success and worth by what we check off a list and think about what really matters the most. I think this is so timely. What a great presentation we're going to have. Join me in welcoming Elise to share with us today, and also remind her to start her speaker timer. So please welcome Elise, and it's your move.
All right. Thanks so much, Chuck, for the warm introduction and the warm welcome. I really appreciate it. For anybody who knows me, you're probably going like, "What to do? Not to do list? That's not what we're talking about here today." You'll understand more of that in a little bit. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Elise Enriquez, as you heard, and I guide clients to breakthroughs in life and business by illuminating what's next. A little bit more about me personally, just touching the highlights real quick. I am wife to Kim Hope. I am the daughter of Judy. I'm sister to Brianna and her wife Amy, and I'm a tia, or an aunt. So tia is aunt in Spanish, to Benjamin and Kate. And that is really where my heart and my time is, along with my family, or my friends, and of course my clients. I started my work in corporate America, as Chuck mentioned. I was in the online ads division at Microsoft doing process and policy management, which really meant I was in a lot of meetings all the time with people from all different divisions of the group to figure out how to get us on the same page and move us forward. I had no idea how much that was going to prepare me for what I do now in my coaching practice and just as an entrepreneur in general, right? And then I pivoted, made a hard pivot over into real estate, and really got my feet wet in the entrepreneurial space before taking all of that and really applying it to the world of coaching. So I've been a coach for 13 years. I'm kind of an OG. I have been fortunate enough to touch hundreds of lives, whether it's through presentations like this, through one-on-one coaching, through group programs that I run, and have spent thousands of hours developing, consuming, delivering productivity training resources. And I would think that probably those second two numbers, hundreds and thousands, are probably could be on the low side, but I don't feel like calculating at all. But either way, I've done a lot of it. So today, what we're really going to focus on, though, is a new definition of productivity, really what the key ingredient is for this kind of productivity, and then a magic formula to boost it. I have to say, your guys' chat game is on point. So this is a very impressive chat that you've got going on here. One, Nancy, you're all over it in terms of getting stuff in there when Cindy's saying it. So you two are very well coordinated, but the rest of you are all too, in terms of adding stuff as you're thinking about it, and as we're talking about different things. I want to encourage you to keep that up. As things are occurring to you, as you're having an insight or an aha, pop it in the chat. And if I have time, I'll give it a shout out, or I might ask you to say more. But please, as you're having insights, ahas, put them in the chat for me. Sound good? Say okay in the chat if that sounds good. Get you back in there again real quick. So today, like I said, we're going to start with that new definition of productivity. Will do, from Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. Oh, we got a thumbs up from Sue too in the actual little response window. I love those little thumbs ups. So why am I talking about a different kind of definition of productivity? Well, we talked about it already. Cindy mentioned this already. Big ideas are exciting and moving them forward is the challenge. That's why productivity is important because you have an impact you want to make. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're representing a business in some way, shape, or form, there's an impact that you're wanting to have. In your personal life, too, what is the kind of impact you want to have? But sometimes prioritizing the implementation of those big ideas can be hard in the midst of the busyness of day to day. So, what I want to do is look at some, I won't say traditional, but some definitions of productivity, and then land on one that we're going to use for the rest of our time together. Sound good? All right, cool. So the first one is attributed to David Allen. He is one of my intellectual crushes. He wrote the book Getting Things Done, and I am a dork who has read that book like 3 times. When people ask like, "Oh, what's the book you've read more than once?" and mine are always like coaching, productivity kinds of books, like not great literature or anything like that. I have a couple of pieces of fiction that I've read more than once, but so what David Allen said productivity is an integrated life management system, the combination of tools, structures, content, and practices used to maintain appropriate engagement with one's world. A workflow, organization, and review process that incorporates every aspect of one's work and life, ensuring a seamless and current inventory of commitments, reminders, and information for optimal control and focus anywhere at any time. Impressive. Very, very brainy, right? That's why the brain's here. This is kind of the head definition of productivity. And while it's super impressive and it's a foundation of anything that I do, it wasn't complete to me. And then I came across Charles Duhigg's definition of productivity. And it has a little more heart to it. So Charles Duhigg is a New York Times bestseller. He wrote The Power of Habit and Smarter, Faster, Better. I think I got those words right. I'm pretty sure those are the right words. But what he says is productivity is a name we give our attempts to figure out the best use of our energy, intellect, and time as we try to seize the most meaningful rewards with the least wasted effort. And that alone is just like a kind of a softer definition, but it's this next part that got me. This is the part that really got me. It's a process of learning how to succeed with less stress and struggle. It's about getting things done without sacrificing everything we care about along the way. And I think that in our lives, in our business world, even in the work world, or even in our personal lives, if you're going after maybe a fitness goal, or you're going to sell your house and you're just kind of get all consumed and all occupied with things, sometimes that can happen where we are so focused on the goal that we lose sight of all the other things that we care about. And I've watched so many people go after the money, go after the growth, go after whatever it is, and lose some pretty important things along the way. And so this kind of more heart-centered approach to productivity really caught me. And so for me, when I think about productivity, I think of a definition that's more succinct, that hopefully captures all of that. And that's making progress on what's most important to you, while remaining present to the people, experiences, and opportunities that matter most. It becomes this function of being realistic about your time, which, to be honest, is the biggest struggle that I see people have. It's about setting priorities and boundaries, right? So that you can be present with who matters most in your daily experiences, because those are the only experiences we have, are the present, right? We can plan for our future, and I have big goals and I have big things I'm working towards, and I don't want to lose track of my day-to-day life and existence. I want to actually maybe enjoy the journey a little bit along the way. So when you hear productivity framed up that way, you're not hearing so much about systems and to-do lists and calendar and time blocking. Those are means of support. Those are systems that actually support you in what it is you're doing. And they're super helpful. And I work with people on all of that. I work with them on all of that, but it's to support what matters most. So, oh, thanks, Sue. Delighted with this definition. Love that. I'm so glad. So when you think about this definition of productivity, about making progress on what's most important to you while remaining present to the people, experiences, and opportunities all around you, how does that shift things? So, pop it into the chat if something's occurring to you now. If not, don't worry. But I want you to just keep that definition in your head and let yourself stew on it for a little bit. All right. Let's take a look at the key ingredient for this kind of new kind of productivity, because it can be really easy to have your planner, your Franklin Covey planner, or all the different planners out there and all the different tools and all the different apps that I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of them. But what is in them? What is in them, and are those things moving forward what matters most to you? So what that means is taking a step back. But where we start is, as entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial minded people, I think there's a sense in this world, and I think it's accurate, is that, being responsive is really important. Being responsive to our clients, being responsive to the market, being responsive to changes that are happening in the world or in our specific area of expertise. Being responsive is really important. And sometimes, especially when you're in business building mode, our focus on being responsive can tip into being reactive. And when that happens, it's like as soon as a ping hits, right? As soon as an email notification hits, as soon as a text hits, as soon as the phone rings, as soon as somebody pops into your office and says, hey, got a minute? Anytime any of those things happen, suddenly the interruptions and the latest and the loudest can take over your day. And they can take over the things and move the things that matter most, that you had decided for yourself that matter most, down to the bottom of your list, per se. And so it's really a matter of saying, okay, how can am I a little bit more on the reactive side? Am I a little too focused on the latest and loudest, right? Is that happening for me right now? And if that is, it's to not judge it. It's just to know that that is what's happening, and that maybe I'm ready to move more back toward responsive again instead of reactive. And here's what I mean by that. And nobody has said it, in my opinion, better than Viktor Frankl has. Although, Cindy, get your stuff together. GYST, that's right. That's my program. Is just. Apparently, there's dispute about attribution of this quote. Apparently, Stephen Covey has been attributed with this quote, but he has said it's not his. He read it in a book and couldn't remember where. I think nobody's been able to find this in writing from Viktor Frankl, but people tend to agree that it comes from him. So I'm sticking with that. But what he says is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And I have to say, it's hard for people to allow that space to exist sometimes. It feels really urgent and important in business to be able to say, okay, here's what needs to get done. Oh, sure, I'm all over it, and just hop onto those things without really thinking about, is this the most important thing I could be doing right now? And it's really hard to do it when you're not clear about what the most important thing is. And so that's why the most critical ingredient to really shifting your approach to productivity is intention. Being more intentional. Yes, Kathleen, the S. Yeah, so did you see the Brene Brown recently? Maybe you saw Brene Brown was just talking about this quote, and I'm like, oh, I love that quote. It's in my presentation. I was very excited to see Brene Brown was talking about this quote right here. Yeah, it's the S(R) formula. It's easier to allow for the space, right, between the stimulus and the response. It's easier to allow the pause when you are clear about some things, when you have clarity about certain things, when you communicate that clarity to who matters most, and when you have systems to support consistent action around getting that done. So there's that consistency again. It's part of the whole model. But what does that actually look like? Clarity, communication, and consistency. Well, clarity looks like, I want this. Having an awareness that is saying, oh, this is what I want, not this, I want that. And then it's actually saying, I want this to who matters most in that particular area of your life, your business, your world. Being able to say, who needs to know about this change I want to make in my business? Well, maybe it's my accountant, and maybe it's my attorney, and maybe it's my bookkeeper, and maybe it's my business partner, and maybe it's my team. Like, who needs to know about this? And then finally, it's saying, okay, what am I going to do? I'll do this, right? So clarity, communication, and then consistent action to move you forward. So that is that model for consistency. And really achieving that, achieving your vision, it takes clarity, communication, and consistency. And along the way, at every phase, learning. And then repeating that over and over and over again for every goal that you are working towards. Cool? All right. Keep us moving here then. So let's dig in a little bit more into this magic formula. I don't know if it's magic. I think it's just fun to say magic. Oh, Cindy, I love what you're saying here. Being reactive feels like tyranny of the urgent. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it can be hard. It can be hard. Like to be customer service oriented, it can feel hard not to do that. And Sue wants the magic. All right, well, let's talk about the magic. So, when we're talking about clarity, communication, and consistency, and really being more intentional, it's about really getting clear about your purpose and your values and knowing why am I here, right? It's about communicating that to the people around you and then setting up ways to support consistent behavior in living out your purpose and your values. Doing the same thing when it comes to your vision and your goals, and of course, down at this level of projects and actions. I kind of see these as these elevations, as if you're kind of taking off into the world. The purpose and values is the direction that you're always heading, right? The vision and goals are the things that you're going to accomplish along the way, and the projects and actions are the steps that you're going to take in that journey. There is weird loud noises. Hold on just 1 second. I'm going to push mute. Sorry about that. There's work going on at my house I was not expecting. So hopefully my wife is going to be able to nip that in the bud for me. All right. So let's look at what this actually means on getting clear about purpose and values. I just want to give you some question prompts. And if for any of these you feel really clear about them, share them with us in the chat. Tell us about your purpose. If you have a nice, clear purpose statement, tell us about it. If you know what your values are, tell us about it. ECN has done such a great job, right, of showing you what that looks like in action here in everything that you all do. You review it every time. You talk about examples for how to do that, right? That's really important, is to be able to say with any of these, what does this actually look like in real life? So when it comes to the first two, it's a matter of saying, okay, when it comes to purpose, what kind of impact do you really want to have in the world? For more on purpose, I'm still a big fan of Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. So if you all haven't watched that video, just Google Simon Sinek Golden Circle TED Talk, and it used to be the #2 TED Talk of all time. I don't know where it's at now. It's probably in the top 5 still. But one of the ways he says it is, what gets you out of bed in the morning, and why should the rest of the world care that you did? And every time I think about that, I'm like, dang, that's good. That's really good. So, what is the impact that you want to have in the world? For me, I'm all about fostering understanding and acceptance of self and others so we can come together to make the world a better place. That is my filter for all the work that I do. All the life that I live goes through that filter. And if I am dedicating a bunch of work to that, to something other than that, then I'm doing the wrong things. I'm not living my purpose, right? So then the next one is values. Is who do you want to be regardless? This is a pokey question. I'm poking at y'all on purpose. So, who do you want to be regardless? Who do you want to be regardless of how everybody else is acting? This question came to me, and I need to look at it again to see if they even phrased it that way or if I just like really took it and ran with it, but it was inspired by The Happiness Trap. Another great resource, The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. It's all about ACT therapy, which is acceptance commitment therapy. And what I love about that book is it has you look at your mind and the way that you talk to yourself. And rather than kind of try to combat that with a bunch of affirmations and maybe phrases and words that you don't really believe, it talks about who do you want to be regardless of how everybody else is acting, but also who do you want to be regardless of the unhelpful chatter that your brain serves up from time to time. And to me, that's where values come into play. I want to be somebody who remembers that my everyday life matters. I want to have an everyday life that I love. I want to be somebody who remembers that we are all connected and in community together. And so I better be aware of what I'm doing and remember that there are people out there to help me, that what I do impacts other people. So I better be thoughtful about the ripple that I create, right? Those are the kinds of things to be thinking about. And then vision and goals is kind of that middle tier of the work, right? Is to look at where will you be 3 to 10 years from now, which is not the one people usually hear 5 to 10 years from now. But I'm like, for some reason, 3 is a great number for me when it comes to goal planning. I had somebody ask, what if I just don't know where I want to be 2 weeks from now? I'm like, okay, we've got other work to do then. And I'll tell you what that looks like in a second. But that's what that person is describing is overwhelm. And there's ways to address that. But think about, what does that look like? How would you know that you've accomplished that vision? What would things look like around you? How would you be different? How would you be the same, right? And then, of course, what goals and milestones are you going to achieve along the way toward getting that vision, making that vision a reality? And then down at the very bottom of this tier is day-to-day life, is day-to-day, week-to-week life, right? Projects and actions. What are the multi-step outcomes that are needed to achieve your goals? And when you describe a project or define a project that way, y'all are working on a lot of projects. Like just scheduling a dentist appointment could be a project if you don't have a dentist, right? If you don't have a dentist, if your dentist retired and you need to schedule a dentist appointment, it's going to take more than one step than just call when you don't have anybody to call, right? So projects and actions, very different, because actions are the things that you will do to move those projects forward. The things that I could walk in and see you doing, that anybody could walk in and see you doing to move these things forward. So over and over again, at all of these levels, it's a matter of saying, I want this, telling somebody you want that, telling the people who matter most that you want that, and then setting up the systems to support you in making consistent progress toward what it is, what you want. And of course, you're going to make adjustments along the way. Without this kind of clarity, it is hard to be able to pause. It is hard to be able to be responsive instead of being reactive, because when you pause, what the heck are you pausing for? What are you pausing for if you have nothing to reflect on to be your filter about what you should do next, right? About what you should be saying yes to, what you want to be saying no to, whether or not this is going to move things forward that you want to be moving forward, right? So if you don't have these things identified, the pause doesn't matter. So getting really clear about this is important. The question usually is, where do I start? I used to think that everybody should start here. I was like, well, y'all just need to know your purpose. If you know your purpose, it's the filter for everything. And my one-on-one clients, we worked on that, all of that kind of stuff. And over time, I kept seeing that people had a hard time raising their view to that level when the ground level of their life and work was so overwhelming, when there was so much going on, when they were so overcommitted that they really could not think beyond that. And that's where, Cindy mentioned just already, get your stuff together, get your systems together, is really all about building systems, right? It's all about helping you make sure that you have the ability to see the reality of your commitments and get a handle on them so you can start to dream at a higher level, right? So you can start to look at maybe a goal for next year and get a vision for the next 3 years and then say, yeah, but what kind of world do I want to leave behind? How do I want to be known? What is my purpose here? It'll be easier to move up to those levels when you get the project and actions, the ground level of your life under control. If this feels under control right now, though, if the ground level of projects and actions, you're good to go there. You have a solid vision and goals, but you're kind of feeling like restless. You're kind of feeling like, does it matter what I do? Like, do I really matter in this world? Then that's when starting with purpose and values is going to be more important. So just to be clear, if you're feeling pretty solid, you're kind of coasting along, and you're feeling a little lost in your coasting, you're doing all the things you said you wanted to do, but it still doesn't feel right, then purpose and values is going to be where you want to zero in. For most people, though, the overwhelm is happening, and projects and actions is where they really need the most support, is what I have found. So in sharing all of this with you, it really gets down to just this dream I have for you. This dream I have for you is to be able to move forward what matters most to you, to enjoy as much of that journey towards that as possible. And this one sounds weird. People always think when they don't know me yet, they're like, what is she talking about? I want you to be totally okay with what's not getting done. I'm going to say that again. I want you to be totally okay with what's not getting done. The anxiety comes from not knowing what's not getting done. The stress comes from not knowing what's not getting done. It comes from worrying about what might be slipping through the cracks, right? And I don't want that for you anymore. And so it's making sure that you have something to support you so that you can see everything and make conscious, intentional choices, right? There's the word again, intentional choices about what you're doing and about what you're not doing, so that you know both. You know what's getting done, you know what's not getting done, and you're okay with what is not getting done. And ironically, of course, this results in a to-do list. As much as I'm saying moving productivity beyond a to-do list, what this results in, when you're clear about these things, when you're intentional, it results in a to-do list that's full of actions for you to take to actually move things forward that you really care about, that you're excited about, and that you're passionate about. There will be a few things on there that are the things you feel like you have to do. There'll be the things that are on there that are the responsibilities of different roles that you play. But that overall, the majority of what ends up on a to-do list is stuff that you care about rather than stuff that you're trying to skip all the time. And doing this will give yourself the space and grace for dreaming big and expanding what's possible. That's it. There you go. So I'm open for questions. I'm open for whatever you guys want to do from here. Do you want me to stop sharing, Cindy?
No, well, yeah, sure. You can stop sharing.
Yeah.
And so I thank you so much. This is beautiful. I love the way you make complex processes simple and understandable. And the definitions really helped hone in on that, because your gist one is just so clean and so inviting. So this is a great opportunity. Feel free to unmute yourself and share a takeaway or aha or epiphany or ask a question. Normally we don't do that, but we have a little bit of time right now. So if you have a question, you can ask it. Feel free to unmute yourself. Jump in. So
go ahead.
There was a pink slide about 3 from the end that I missed.
Sure. Yeah, that was
I was trying to remember it. And I was just going to get it and it was gone.
Yeah, no worries. Here you go. Projects and actions. Is that the one?
One more toward the end.
Toward the end would be that.
Okay, maybe I'm this one.
Easter. Okay.
I think. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. There is pink on that slide. You were right.
So does anybody have any, just something that Sue shared that, you can put into action or that created an epiphany for you? For me, I really liked when she talked about, it's important to be responsive to the world and share your expertise. And, just kind of what I heard you say, Elise, is just, keep things in the humming, keep things, the important things, within your grasp, as opposed to what we all hear and know is, and I put it in the chat, the tyranny of the urgent. We all have that, like the dog barks, the door rings, the phone rings, and it keeps us from doing what we're really wanting and needing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the latest and the loudest as I think about it. It really is that opportunity to say, is this the most important thing I could be doing right now? And y'all, I work on it all the time, right? So I'll be in the middle of working on something and I have to go to my email to get some information and I see new emails in there. And I'm just like, okay, well, what does Cindy need? Right? What is Cindy asking?
Yeah.
What does she need? Or, what's whoever doing? And I'm like, I look and it's just like, and I'll start responding and I'll start gathering. And I'm just like, and I will stop myself and say, Elise, is this the most important thing you could be doing right now? And if it is not, which is hard because I want to help everybody, right? If it is not though, then I seriously stop. I'm like, nope. Go find the thing that I was looking for in my email. Now go shut my email and get back to the thing that I said I wanted to work on right now. That doesn't mean though that that urgent isn't necessary to respond to. Like doesn't mean that, you know, so sometimes you're going to ask yourself that question, is this the most important thing I could be working on right now? And it might be yes, right? If Cindy was like, Elise, you said you were going to send me this yesterday and I still haven't got it yet. I'm like, oh, that's my bad. I will take care of that. Or somebody calls and your kid is sick and you got to pick them up from school or anything like that. Sometimes those interruptions will be the most important thing that you need to work on at that moment. So it's not saying interruptions should not be touched. It's saying pause and be able to check in with yourself and what you said you wanted for your day and the progress you wanted to make on what matters most and decide what's most important.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I feel like decide is the operative word.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's pause. It's a pause, right? The pause so that you can decide. Absolutely, Kathleen.
I heard
Yeah,
once the distinction of choose and decide. So decide is when you kill off something. You're, you know, like suicide and all those just words that have, you know, you're killing it off.
You have the side
versus-
in it. Yeah.
Yeah, side versus choose is empowering because you're choosing powerfully, which you want. So I don't know.
Ooh,
Sorry.
that's interesting. I've never heard that
Little side
before.
note there, but yeah,
yeah.
It makes sense.
yeah, it's a landmark concept. Nancy's chiming in. Yes, choose powerfully, whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
Don't just kill off the options.
Mhm.
So I have a question for you. Oh no, go ahead, Nancy. You go next.
I just had a really nice, sorry, Cindy, I just have a really nice value gotten from this. I love what you did and I love how you did it. When you went to where because I build teams, where I got that you went to was when you said people go right to what's your purpose. You got to know your purpose. But I really understand what you're saying because a lot of people never get started. And I really got what you said about that tasking on the ground floor has got to be better managed. I'm in that right now myself. Has to be better managed to be able to get to the purpose. It's like not even obtainable. And that has been very helpful for me today. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I hope that gives you relief because like I said, that's what I kept witnessing. I'm just like, I can't get this person there. I'm like, oh, their day to day is just completely overwhelming. We got to figure that out. And so, you know, the work that I do more specifically at that ground level of projects and actions now and productivity systems was a total accident, but it was a response, you know, to the market, like to my people, right? Saying like where they couldn't even think about why they're here. Right? They were feeling lost, but they couldn't think about it because they were like up to their, you know, eyeballs in life. And we had to figure out how to give them some breathing space so that they can then figure out where they going next.
Yeah, I see it in me right now where I'm at in my spot in life. But for more importantly, because I know that I have tools and you've given me access to a different view for myself, but it's giving me access for a view for when I'm helping someone new get started. I can actually start them where they need to start so they can evolve to their purpose. Because it's like, I want this, like your light bulb, I want this, but it's like not achievable. So they don't try.
Yep.
I have
That's
to
really
agree.
helpful.
Yeah, Nancy, that was, exact same thoughts, just in terms of team and why is it so hard to get people started if they have these dreams, but really they can't internalize those dreams at all because their life is here. So yeah, beautiful.
You work with teams a lot also, don't you, Elise? Individuals and teams?
Yeah. It's fun to do that because I work mostly with intact teams. So it'd be like right now I'm working with a financial planning company. They've got about 10 people. And so I'm taking them through my GIST program over the course of 6 weeks. And there's kind of just teaching them these concepts, but then there's also the conversations that sparks amongst the team members about how they can be doing things different internally. And so, because I don't have the internal view, right? But when we're talking about these higher level concepts and some of the application of them, suddenly they're going, you know what? I think we need to rethink how we're doing our team meetings. You know what? I think we really need to, you know, like things just start to change and it's really fun to watch that happen.
So Elise, I have a question for you. And so we all have, we're talking about the tyranny of the urgent, but the technology that we have today is coming at us so quickly. And we have so many different portals, if you will. We have the, Facebook message, and we have the message on your phone, and you have the emails, and you have the calls, and then you have the voicemails, and then the message people and text, and there's just so many different things. And so I find that, there's times where I'll hear something and I'll look at it, but I can't deal with it at that moment. And so then I kind of put it in the back of my head, but then here's the deal. I can't remember where I found it. That's the problem.
Totally.
And I have to go spend a lot of time just figuring out. I know I saw a quick message. I didn't get the whole message in most cases. So I can't just from memory respond.
You knew it was enough. You saw enough to know you couldn't respond right away.
I saw enough to know I couldn't respond at that moment, but and then the problem is, it's like, I can't remember where, because you want to respond in if somebody emails you, you email back. If they text you, you text them back and keep that thread going.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of gotten to the point where now, if I look at it, I make myself deal with it, because it takes more time to go find it than to deal with it. Anybody have that insight?
Currently it does. It takes more time, right?
Right now,
because you're trying to stick it in here, and we all know how great our brains are at remembering what to do because when do we remember that we need bread? Not when we're at the grocery store. Our brain never seems to tell us when we're at the grocery store that we need bread. It tells us, when we get home or when we leave. So what you're talking about, though, are gathering spots, right? So there's all these gathering spots, and gathering spots can be intentional or unintentional. So all of these inboxes and all these different ways that people can reach you are what I consider to be gathering spots. And to make them more intentional means you empty them frequently and consistently, and to also minimize them. Now we can't, or you could choose to shut down a bunch of social media accounts and say, no, I won't ever accept a text again, but that's probably not going to happen. So the next best thing you can do besides emptying those spots frequently and consistently is to have one place for action. And so if you just decided, okay, my one place for action is this one notebook or this one app or this, the task thing in Google or whatever that was. So that way, when something comes through, you can say, oh, text from Kathleen, Facebook message from Elise. And you can just pop those in there, and that way you don't have to remember and spend time searching. You know exactly where they're at. But
that's a good
is
idea
to put that all in one place, right? It has to land in one spot, because if it's in more than one place, you're not going to trust any of them. So it's like getting all of that into one spot. So I use a tool, Chuck's familiar with it. It's called GQs, and you can get it free. I use the paid version, but it works really nicely with a lot of Google products. But anyway, that is just on my phone. And if I get a text that I don't have time to respond to, I'm like, I'll seriously put respond to Carrie's text into my app and put a due date of today on it if it needs to be today. And that way I can get back to what I was doing. But I have that list pulled up all the time on my computer so that I know not to miss anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because I just have so many that I see it come through and I think I'm going to remember. And then I'm like, okay, was that text? Was that Facebook Messenger? Was that what? Where was that? I spend more time just digging that out.
We have so much coming at us these days. And this was a study from the early 2000s, was that, or 2008, I think it was, where they looked at how much data comes at individuals in any given day. And it's enough to fill up a laptop in a week. And I would argue that now it's worse, right? Now, this is, how many years later, it's worse. And so to think that we can hold all of it in our heads is it's not reasonable anymore. And we shouldn't feel bad about it. We just should not feel bad about it, and just set up the systems to support you so that you can stop feeling bad about it.
Right. Well, thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Of course.